Let's be fair. When humans had a bilateral conversation with God, a quarter of the population chose not to be united with His purpose, and then murdered another quarter. And that just upped the percentage to a third that was not united, yet still conversed directly with God. A conversation with God, even when you can physically hear Him, is no insurance for unity. To take that a step further, in Eden it was half the population that chose not to be united, and with a bite, all chose not to be united with God's purpose. The key word here is chose, because in the book of Acts, there were many who chose to come together to be united. They chose to put away differences, ego, position, to come together. Then they chose to pray in one accord, and revival set in such a way that everyone around could understand. Imagine unity that allows everyone to understand your purpose, and more importantly, God's message.
Offering information for your mind. Enabling transformation for your heart. Sabbath School U, a weekly dialogue exploring God's Word and its application for today's world.
I'm Andrew Tompkins, and this is Sabbath School University, and we're here on the campus of Andrews University to be with some guests to talk about some more things from the Bible. I would like you to introduce yourself and just tell me something exciting that happened to you in the last year.
Okay, my name is Sandra Gutierrez. I am from Peru. I'm very blessed to be here at Andrews. I think one of the most exciting things that has just happened to me is coming to Andrews to be able to study. It is so difficult in order to come to the United States, but God has opened all the doors for me.
That's great. Great.
My name is Guilherme Borda, and I study theology here at Andrews. But one exciting thing that happened to me this last year is that I had the joy, the opportunity to go on a mission trip to Cuba with some group of students, and it was really nice.
Great. Excellent.
My name is Edie. And I do the Masters in Religion program.
Okay.
Yeah, and I enjoy it very much. The most exciting thing that has happened to me in this year happened very recently, where I got approved to go as a missionary to Korea to work with one of my best friends. So I'm excited. I'm very
excited.
That's nice.
Great. Well, it's nice to hear good things happening to each of you. Before we get into our discussion, I'm just going to ask you if you would pray for us and read the opening scripture.
Okay, let's pray. Dear God, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and study your word. We ask that you will help us understand it and your will to our lives. And we already say thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
So I'll be reading from Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 to 3. Ephesians 4, verses 1 to 3, and it says, I, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called, with all lowliness and gentleness, with longsuffering, bearing with one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace.
Thank you. This series we've been discussing revival and reformation, very important topics. And today we want to really focus in on unity and its connection with revival. And so to get into that, I just want to hear from you. What do you think of when you hear the word unity? What's something that comes to mind?
To me, one thing that comes to mind is that it's something that is not natural. Okay. In the world that we live today, unity is simply not natural. The natural thing is division, separation, and conflict. So it's something that is not natural.
So we often see people trying to be different than everybody else, whether it be in culture or different things.
Exactly, or to do something against each other to get something from it. So to have unity, there needs to be some supernatural element.
Wow. Okay.
And I agree with that, because the idea that, when I first hear the word is a very fake idea, like people happy and everything is pink, That's when I hear unity, that's what I think. And maybe society has put into our heads a weird idea of unity, where, there's no problem, everything is fine, and everything will work out, Yeah,
at the same time also when we think about unity is that everything is going to be fine, everybody's going to be happy. But at the same time, I think unity is also a complement, like a complexity of many things at the same time. But it's a goal, and sometimes it's difficult to reach that goal.
Wow. That brings me to a question then. We often hear about the idea of unity and uniformity. And what does that mean for a Christian? What are the dynamics there with those two terms?
Well, sometimes trying to be unite, we may tend to think that we should be exactly the same. But think about a couple, for example. You have a married couple. They are not uniform. They have their differences, but that's the way it is. But it doesn't hinder unity to happen. So unity goes beyond uniformity. It's a different concept. I don't need to be exactly the same, look the same, and do everything the same way to be united. It's imagine a group of friends, they are diverse, or a nation may be united, but they are diverse.
Yeah, I think that's a very nice topic, talking about diversity, because here at Andrews is very diverse. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that we need to be like flexible and open to many kinds of cultural things, and also at the same time the church, because every single member of the church is so different. And so sometimes there are so many issues into the church, but at the same time we keep in mind that we are united and we are looking at, so that makes a difference.
So you mentioned something there at the end, and maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about diversity as a positive thing
Yeah.
in the church. So how can we have unity? If we're so diverse, everybody's so different, and it's okay to be different,
Yeah.
how do we stay unified without being uniform?
Well, not everything needs to be diverse. It's good that there's some diversity, but we all believe in the same God, and there's a group of beliefs that hold us together. So there's a lot of elements that are the same, and still those elements are the same. I may have a slightly different perspective than you or than her, but still we are united. So there are some elements that they indeed need to be the same to be united. There has to be some common ground, but of course diversity is good as well. God showed us this when He created several different animals and different kinds of trees and different kinds of environments, and one man and one woman. So He likes diversity, but still they are united because they have something in common. I think the main thing in common is God in our lives is the main thing.
So that's the core, at the base of unity is God. Are there any other core or important things that we should recognize as unifying us beyond just God? Because that's still quite broad. Many people say they believe in God, and yet are vast amount of different ways of believing in God.
That's true.
So is there anything else that unifies? Do you recognize any other things?
Well, everything should be based in God, right?
Okay.
But there's other things that unify us. Like I can think just quickly as something as a language. I find Sandra, we speak Spanish, and I'm like, hi, we already know each other. Yeah, I already feel a bond with her because we speak the same language. And there's cultures, there's other things. But the question is, will these things be enough for unity?
I think also, on the other hand, it's so important that we need to have like a close relationship with God, and also between us, between neighbor to neighbor, because that makes a big difference. Otherwise, if I have my own point of view or my own idea out of a close relationship with God, that is going to cause so many issues within the church and out of the church too.
So this is good, and many times we talk about a relationship with God, and it's you and God, but in order to have true unity, it needs to be more than just you and God. It has to be you and the community. And actually, to have a revival, it's going to have to be the community eventually anyways, right? It's not revival if it's just you and God.
It's true. And if you think about, for example, in history, some nations have found unity in several different ways, and one of the ways that you can find unity among a group of people is based in history. So I think that when you have a relationship with a person, you develop a history. that's one of the things in marriage, for example. You have your wife and you develop that history that's only the two of you. And when you have a group of friends, you have a history behind. So I have friends from high school that when I meet with them now, it's the same thing. It's just everything comes back, and it's almost like we have never gone through different ways. I came to study here and they're studying another place. So the history is something that binds us together. So one thing that binds the church together is the history of the gospel and the history that we are all part of this great group of people that are seeking God together. So it's the history of Christianity, seeking God. So I think this binds us together as well.
Yeah, and there is an important verse that talks about that, and now the multitude of those who believe were of one heart and one soul. So everybody has the same.
And that's from Acts.
Yeah, from Acts, right? From Acts 4:32. And so I think if you have like a close relationship with God, you walk with God and you pray, God, please, I want to die to myself and be willing to share the gospel with other people. That is going to be a change that it takes a while, every day, every morning.
Wow. So you've brought in that there are maybe some challenges to unity. What are some other things that may happen that can cause disunity in the church, local church, or even in the broader sense of people who believe in God? What are some things that mess up the unity?
There can be many things, and maybe we could be here forever, mentioning, this will mess it up. But there's one thing that I believe lies at the bottom of it, and I believe it's selfishness, because we are selfish by nature in a sinful world, and selfishness by definition cannot be blend with the definition of unity. I mean, if I'm selfish, I cannot do the things that will get me to be united with other people, because it's all about myself and I'm like an island. And so selfishness has a lot of faces, a lot of different modes. And so everything that it's based on selfishness will bring division. And maybe you guys can help me out to figure out other things.
Well, think about it. I will always have the best idea. I will always know the best way, always know the best method.
I will be the one who has the best idea.
If you're going to paint the church, I know the best color. No, come on, you will never know it. Or I know the best way to reach the community. I always know the best way. If I always think that I know the best, this is the thing, I will not know the best unity, but because I think I'm the best, so everybody needs to just be uniform, but not according to their standards, but according to my standards. So they all need to be me. So,
but you have realized now what we just talked. It's all about me. It's like, me first. But if we put God in the first place, so we are going to be the second. And so we are going to be focused on God, what God wants for us in order to grow spiritually in so many aspects. And so I think selfishness is, one of the biggest challenges for as a human being in order to overcome. And so we cannot do it, but with God's help, we will make it. We
will. And he actually, in the Gospel of John, when Jesus is about to be arrested, he has this prayer in this Gospel, and he basically empties his heart before the Lord, before his Father, and when you're going to go through something like that, you're going to be arrested. You know that you have to go through the worst thing that any human being could go through, die in a cross. And in this sense, we know that Jesus did it big time. He died for all of us. The one thing that he prayed right before he left for this trial was for unity, not only for the unity that he has with the Father as a Trinity, but the unity for these believers in this time and for us. And so it makes it, to me, have a big, very important. It's just basically what I want to say is that it makes it very important, because it's like his last prayer before he goes into a trial. So maybe it's very important for us too.
This is good. And I think we've discussed some things here that are so important, especially selfishness, and then it's obvious that Jesus really wants us to be unified. The problem is we're all selfish and fall short. And then revival doesn't happen many times because we're these things. So in what ways can we maybe move towards being more unified? What can help us become more unified and maybe trigger revival?
If we all focus in the same maybe or some goals in common, I think it's something that may help. For example, we got together and we have this goal of revival. So there's already something that binds us together, which is this goal. Now, how we're going to get there, we may have different opinions, but at least we may try to agree generally in some things. Like, for example, we all understand that prayer is important for revival. So let's get together and pray. So let's pray for each other. This is something that is also going to bring unity. And now we want to spend more time together because we spend time together and we are praying for each other. We care for each other. So we want to be more time together. So this increases both our prayer life and our unity. And we also agree that reading the Bible is good for revival. So let's read it and study together. Now, there are some things that we may disagree when we study the Bible, but together, if we come honestly trying to understand it together, the basic things that lead to salvation, we're gonna basically agree on it. So we try to now bring more people to this group, and then we try to reach out to other people because we want them to be united as well. So this just keeps growing and growing.
There's two things that I can take about quickly, and you mentioned prayer. I think that's very important, and not only that we know that prayer is important, but that we come with the right attitude, because we can pray forever in a group having the attitude that you mentioned before, that, okay, I'm the best, that I'm praying the best prayer, that won't work. So I think it's good it starts by me, I guess, submitting to the Lord and asking Him to bring a revival and reformation in my life, so that I can be humble enough, hopefully, to do what I need to do in order to have unity. And another thing that comes to my mind is that sometimes we want to have unity. I personally want to have unity, but I don't want to invest time in the people that I want to be united with. And that could hinder unity, because then I don't know you. I don't know your struggles. You don't know my struggles. Like, what is going to bring us together? But if we spend time together, if we make an effort for that, I think that could help.
Good.
I think also that the Sabbath makes a big difference, because on the holiday and the Sabbath we can get together and we can discuss ideas like how can we pursue this goal in order to be united, even though there are so many differences. So the Sabbath makes a big difference. And also, I believe also in prayer and sharing the Bible and reading the Bible. No, it's like you nurture yourself, and then as soon as you nurture yourself, you are ready to share with others. But for example, I remember at my church when we were teenagers. Now, our pastor used to tell us, okay, so let's pray because we really need miracles. What about if we gather together like 5 a.m. in the church, and you pick you guys, and so we can get together and we can pray. So in a way, I think that was so useful, because when we got together, all the teenagers, we were able to do, with God's help, many things for Him to reach other people out.
And I like that, because don't you guys think that unity in itself is a miracle? And so
it is.
we need to pray. We cannot do it on our own. I have one of my best friends. We always say that we're preparing each other for marriage, because when you spend too much time with a person, you will always end up having some kind of disagreement, because you're not the same person, but but we always agree that, okay, we need to pray so that the Lord will bring this friendship to a higher level. And God does, it's and up to an extent, it's not a big deal. It's more we're figuring out, okay, it's more dependence on God than what we can do for ourselves. It's a miracle.
And it's interesting that you're talking about friendships, and when we look to a friend and think about the relationship we have with this friend, we see that it's pretty good. I have this friendship, I have this relationship. But if we started looking at people in general, people walking in the street, just look at him and see him or her as a potential friend. Because given the time, given the opportunity, given a history that can be developed, you may become friends. You may love that person as much as you love any of your other friends. So just love before the friendship starts. Because eventually, given the opportunity and time, you will love anyway. So just start loving before, and I think it will help a lot.
So I'm hearing some themes here. I'm hearing humility is a requirement for unity and revival, and the idea that we have to be in community. We have to be with others, which, believe it or not, is a challenge for a lot of people. You know, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have all these things. We can just sit in our room and never go outside, and yet it's not the same. It's not quite the same, and it's hard to develop unity when you're not actually together and with each other. And I think we see this in the New Testament, in Acts, when the people are gathered in the upper room, praying together, and through that they became unified. And I think the theme is there in the New Testament. Do you see any other instances in the New Testament where this idea of coming together brings unity?
Well, I think that besides coming together, they had this identity.
Okay.
Because it's true, they had different nations. When you see they coming together and now they preach it, they got together, they received the Holy Spirit, they preach it. Other people had come together for other reasons, not together with people who believed in Jesus, but they came together. And then they had their identity in God, but they have different views. So now we see Peter preaching and the people accepting and joining them. So identity is a key element as well. And identity may be slightly different, but if we can focus on a central identity, I think, for example, if I go to another country and I find another person that believes in God, that is a Christian as well, there's an identity that binds us, even though I have never seen that person before. But we have something that binds us just because we have this identity in God. And it doesn't matter if I've never seen the person, there's something there.
That's so true. The other day I met this friend, and we like the same singer, and like it's a singer that barely people know, and we were like, you too, it's so excited, you know. So I think it just happens in life, but when it happens with it's spiritual things, I think it's so much deeper, because spiritual things are, well, if they are important to us and we find somebody that, you know, can be united with us in that aspect, it's so important. And that's the beauty of it, that if we're united in the important basic ones, then it shouldn't matter that much if, you know, you like red and I like blue for the carpet of the church, you know, it doesn't really.
That's true. It's like an expression of there is beauty in diversity. But at the same time, it's like it was a challenge for the same disciples, for themselves also, because at the beginning they were trying to figure it out. Oh, I'm gonna be the leader. I'm gonna be the leader. I'm gonna be the first one. So they were fighting each other, who is going to be the first. And Jesus himself, he was like trying to teach them that the one who wants to be the first one has to be the servant, right? And so for them at the beginning was a challenge, not to understand that Jesus, when he came here, he was teaching not like an earthly government, a heavenly government. And then after Jesus resurrected, they started to understand, really, we need to work for a heavenly purpose, not for our selfish purposes. So for them at the beginning was really difficult, but then they figured out that, okay, this is the way we should do, and they did great miracles.
It's interesting thinking about the people of the past and the biblical times. There's a text that I really like. To me, it's a really tough text. It's 1 Corinthians 9, and the verse is 1 Corinthians 9 and verse 23. No, verse 19. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 19. It says, these are words from Paul, and he says, "For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win them more. And then he continues saying concerning the Jews, concerning the Gentiles, or those who are not under the law, and continues the text here. But this thing, I have made myself a servant to all. He's not saying that he did some voluntary service during his spring break.
You're right.
He is a servant, and a servant is a servant. It's not an employee. The guy is serving as a normal lifestyle. This is part of his life. He puts selfishness away. He surrendered himself to God to be able to serve everybody. Everybody, the people he likes, the people he doesn't like, the people that dislike him, he serves them. Now this brings unity, because when I am willing to put myself away and serve you and serve her and everybody, somehow we are united. Because I see somebody in the street, and it doesn't matter if we agree differently, if we don't agree actually, if we view stuff differently, it doesn't matter if this person dislikes me, I'm here to serve. Now this breaks barriers. Because it's not expected. So when we go to church or when we go to school or to workplace expecting to serve, then I think we can have more unity.
Yeah. And it's not, again, like you're saying, not unity for unity's sake. That's not the goal, to be united. But the unity goal is because God is like that, is the character of God. You know, unity in humility and love is the character of God. Jesus came and he became that, the servant. His apostles imitated his example, and hopefully we will. And it's something that attracts people because it's unnatural and it's a miracle, like we said. And that's why I think that Jesus says in John 17, in that prayer I was talking about, that in the verse 21, it says that there might be unity so that the world may believe that you have sent me. So there's something about unity that attracts people, that brings belief.
Well, we're running out of time, and we've heard a lot of very important and powerful things here. Just to wrap it up, we know conflict may come, but we must remain unified. And what do you think is the most important thing to keep us unified?
God as the main thing in our lives. I think that's the most important thing, because to have unity, there has to be supernatural element. God needs to be there.
To have a close relationship with God, to experience His love every day.
Good. Well, we're out of time. Thank you again for being on the show and for your input. If you'd like to join in the discussion, visit our Facebook page off the link on our website at www.sabbathschoolu.org. That's www.sabbathschool.org. For Sabbath School University, I'm Andrew Tompkins. We'll see you next week.